Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere damp, dark, and very faintly sweet. Imagine a village in 1700s Europe, mud slicked into every hem, chamber pots emptied into cobbled alleys, and the stench of decay carried on every breath of wind. The air is thick with rot and smoke, and yet, somewhere in that muck, there's a woman wearing something soft and floral, something like crushed violet, and suddenly you notice her more than anyone else. That's not an accident. This world doesn't run on truth. It runs on suggestion, survival, and sometimes sexual, wrapped in linen and laced with perfume. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into a square that shouldn't smell good, but it does. The reek of fish and tanneries still clings to every stone, but above it is the ghost of something sweeter: rosewater, clove, ambergris, something hauntingly unnatural. People walk past it like they don't notice, but you do, and soon you find the source. She's leaning by a doorway, a basket of herbs on her hip, a half-smile curling under the shade of her bonnet. You notice the stain of something dark along her wristadie, or a bruise, or both. You notice the small glass bottle dangling from her apron cord. You notice too much, and now you're in trouble. Perfume, in this time, is not merely fashion. It's defense. It's camouflage. Sometimes it's confession. The clean are suspicious, the scented dangerous, and the woman before you knows this very well. She shifts slightly as you approach. Her scent changes, richer, warmer, musk, maybe cinnamon, or civet, or maybe you're just imagining the shift. Historians still argue whether women in the 1700s truly understood the olfactory psychology of survival, or if they simply clung to anything that masked the world's decay. But tonight, you'll see there was more strategy than chance. In cities, perfumes had become tools of distinction. In villages like this, they were closer to weapons. While upper-class women bathed in lavender colognes to avoid real baths, peasant women might dab herbs on their pulse points to seem healthier, too fragrant to touch. Scent created illusion, and illusion, here, is everything. You watch her trade with the butcher-not coin, but cloves, a poultice for his wife's cough, wrapped in linen steeped in rosemary and tallow. You can't tell whether it's medicine or charm, but he gives her double the meat she should afford. A child trips nearby, and she's suddenly at his side, offering a sprig of mint from her basket. The boy runs the mint in his pocket. Moments later, his mother glares from across the square. Did the woman just bless the child, or curse him? It doesn't matter. The mother's already whispering. The witch hunts are technically fading. Europe's peak hysteria had passed decades ago, but here, in this corner of the continent, suspicion never left. The noose just loosened, and that scent she wears, it could be evidence. Back then, certain smells were considered holy: frankincense, myrrh, lilies. Others, sinful: jasmine, patchouli, especially musk associated with sensuality, rebellion, and flesh. The Inquisition once linked musk directly to witchcraft. After all, it came from animals, creatures, beasts. Even now, centuries later, some scholars debate whether certain perfume ingredients, like storax or ambergris, were intentionally chosen by wise women, not just to delight, but to disrupt, to control how others reacted, how close they stood, how long they listened. You walk further into the alley, toward the back of the herbalist's hut. She's ahead of you again, pulling something from her basket and tucking it beneath a window ledge. You squint there, barely visible, a small linen sachet tied with red thread. A charm, a spell, or just a way to make someone think twice before entering that building. In the 1700s, these little bundles were common, especially among women accused of knowing too much. They'd contain herbs, resins, even nail clippings. They might smell of thyme or sweat or both. Their function, unclear, but their effect, unease. And suddenly, you feel it too, that slow, creeping realization. You're not the hunter in this story, you're the hunted. You've noticed her, and she's noticed that you've noticed. She turns. Her perfume hits you squarely. You can't place it. Something resinous, woody, and almost sweet, like burnt sugar. It's not repulsive, but it's disorienting. And just like that, your suspicion begins to slip into fascination. Your fear becomes a kind of warmth. That's when she speaks. "You smell like new bread," she murmurs, almost fondly. You stammer something, but it doesn't matter. She's already walking away. You feel like you've been tagged, chosen, or cursed. The scent of her lingers in the air. You follow. You trail behind her without meaning to, like a dog after scraps, down past the baker's corner, where the loaves burn slightly at the edges, past the cracked statue of Saint Agatha with the birds nesting in her bosom. Every turn she makes leaves another faint trail like smoke, but silkier. You don't know whether it's perfume, witchcraft, or simply the way your curiosity now follows her like a tethered ghost. She pauses near a well, tying her apron tighter. The movement exposes her wrist again, and you see the little bottle glint in the sun. Round, amber, stoppered with something dark. You recognize it. That's not a churchwoman's scent bottle. That's custom-made. "Too much rose," he mutters, but not to hurt to his wife, maybe, or to himself. She doesn't look his way, but her smile widens slightly. Perfume, they believed, was prideful, vanity, a cover-up for the rotting soul beneath. She stops at one and picks up a tiny vial lemon balm, the seller claims, good for the nerves. She buys, too, a farmer's wife who smelled of jasmine, sorcery, a laundress who wore myrrh, blasphemy. It smells now of beeswax and something sharp, like vinegar cut with rose. You know, because suddenly it's on you. She brushes past deliberately, her shawl trailing across your arm. You feel the dampness of it, the heat. She says something low and smooth, and his whole frame seems to stutter. The bottle in her hand glints again. The priest's expression shifts. He listens longer than he should. Civet to cause discomfort, violet to ease suspicion. Some say it was art, others intention. Still others argue it was pure chance. When survival demands control, even the illusion of control becomes a weapon. And as she leaves, you see him smell his own sleeve-like, trying to remember her. After all, who would spend her few coins on scentless? She was trying to hide something. She, meanwhile, moves through this dirty village, like she doesn't belong to it, like she's playing a different game. The man rubs his fingers together, like trying to shake something off, pulls a tiny cone of something from her pocket, looks like dried petals, crushed herbs, maybe wax, lights it on a nearby brazier. Smoke rises spiced, cloying, strangely beautiful. The man gasps, gurgles, and then begins to breathe, and you notice she hasn't moved, just stood still, a hand on her bottle. It smells like saffron, like dust, like something warm from a forgotten room. In the 18th century, perfume wasn't mass-produced. Each mixture was personal, mixed by hand, often in back rooms, or by chemists with more secrets than credentials. Dabs it against her temples. Then, with almost absurd delicacy, she pats behind her ears, mixing the well's murk with whatever she wears. There were accounts of women using perfumes as charms. Allegations in trials where a man's obsession began with a smell. And not all of these women were prosecuted. Some were married, some inherited, some survived. What you carried on your skin said everything about who you were, or wanted others to think you were, and sometimes who you weren't. But it doesn't. If anything, the new wetness intensifies her scent like steam rising from a heated oil. She dips a cloth in the water, squeezes it dry. You'd expect it to dilute her. You're not alone in noticing. An old man seated nearby clears his throat. Historians still argue whether scent in this era was understood scientifically, symbolically, or both. Smell wasn't just personal, it was moral. It could indicate purity, cleanliness, or heresy. You stink, you sin, you smell too nice, you're seducing the world. Either way, you're dangerous. And here's the twist. The church was particularly suspicious of women who smelled better than their station allowed. You follow her toward the little side market, a cluster of stalls selling wilted vegetables, cloth scraps, and tinctures in cloudy bottles. You inch closer. The perfume on her skin has evolved subtly, maddeningly. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't even acknowledge you. Instead, she walks up to a priest. He's young, fresh robes, probably smells like soap and ink. This isn't just attraction, it's chemical warfare. By the 1700s, people knew that scent changed behavior if they couldn't explain how. The fringe beliefs, still debated today's, that certain wise women used scent strategically, a dab behind the knee to pull eyes downward, a hint beneath a headscarf to create mystery. You lean against a crate, suddenly aware of your own scent, mud, sweat, nerves. You smell alive and vulnerable. And then a child shouts. Someone's collapsed. Not her. A man nearby, one of the market guards. His eyes roll, foam at the lips. People shout for a healer. A woman screams, and still, she doesn't flinch. Instead, she steps forward. The crowd murmurs, some in thanks, some in fear. And you, of course, just stare. She leaves the cone burning and walks away. You step toward the brazier, inhale, and just for a second, your head swims. You're not sure how long you've been standing by the brazier, breathing that smoke like it holds answers. The scent seems to cling inside your nose, soft and strange earthy, but sweet, like moss soaked in honey. Your thoughts wander, not in a dreamy way, more like you've stepped slightly outside of your body, and now watch yourself watching her. She's disappeared again, but her trail hasn't. The scent left in her wake seems stronger now, not just on the air, but woven into the village itself. You follow it to the edge of the market, where the apothecaries nestle together like old secrets. The signs creak in the breeze. Dried herbs dangle above each doorframe, like witch-repelling charms or witch-inviting ones, depending on who you ask. You duck into the nearest shop, where the air changes the moment the door closes. It's warm, damp, smells like dried mint, pine sap, and faintly animal. Something musky and ancient and a little unnerving. Behind the counter is a man who looks half asleep. He barely glances at you, looking for time or trouble. He murmurs, rearranging glass jars, as if they hold his sanity. You mumble something about following a scent, and his mouth twitches, not quite a smile, not quite a warning. Then you want the booth in the back, he says. The one with the cracked marble pestle. She left just minutes ago. Smelled like regret and vetiver. You step cautiously past rows of gleaming bottles, some filled with liquids, others with powders or sludges that glint oddly in the low light. This isn't the kind of shop that sells soap. This is where people buy solutions for things they don't name out loud. You stop at the back booth, a mortar stained pink. Bits of crushed petals and dark root still clinging to its bowl. Beside it, a cloth bag holding a few vials. One's open. You lean close, and the scent hits you. Lemon, verbena, something smoky, something slightly metallic. This wasn't perfume. This was a potion, or a lure. And here, a fun little fringe tidbit. Historians discovered 18th century love powders often contained ingredients like Spanish fly, dried beetles, or even snakeskin ground to dust. Did they work? No. Did people believe they did? With religious fervor. And scent was the primary vehicle for delivery, rubbed into the collar, dusted into a lover's handkerchief, or dissolved into bathwater. You imagine Hercom, measured grinding these strange things, while humming something low and indecipherable. Maybe it's not magic. Maybe it's just the intimacy of labor, the intent behind it. But magic and labor look very similar when done in secret. A bell tinkles from the front of the shop. A new customer enters, and you instinctively duck lower. You're not even sure why. Just that you feel like you're not supposed to be here. Like the longer you linger near her traces, the more of you she owns. You slip back outside. The sun's shifted. The village feels hotter now, stickier. The stench of livestock returns. But underneath it still clings a thread of musk and clove and something faintly balsamic. You're starting to distinguish notes, now top, middle, bass, like a perfumer yourself, or an addict. The trail leads you to a quieter part of town. Fewer people here, fewer windows, fewer questions. There's a small stall tucked under a slanted roof, more shed than shop. Dried foxglove hangs from the rafters, a carved symbol on the door. Not a cross. Not quite. More like a spiral tucked into a fang. Inside, she's with another woman, older, rounder, wrapped in layers like a pastry. They speak in low tones, words muffled by bubbling pots and the rattle of a wooden spoon. You lean just close enough to hear. She said. The priest choked on his own breath. The older woman grumbles. I told her sandalwood was too obvious. Men think with their noses and not their heads. Your breath catches. She did it anyway. The younger one replies. Your witch. He didn't die. He'll remember. Laughter. Then light. Unbothered. You freeze. Historians still argue whether 18th century women accused of witchcraft were conscious manipulators of power or simply survivors making do. But here, right now, you see the answer flicker behind the steam rising in that tiny shed. It was both. The older woman uncorks a bottle. The scent escapes like a genie. Deep, leathery, smoky. It smells like secrets, like someone's sins bottled and sold. They take turns dabbing it at their necks. And just like that, you understand. These women aren't hiding. They're arming themselves. In a world where their voices are dismissed, their knowledge twisted, their bodies punished, they wear scent like armor, like invitation, like threat. You shift too loudly. The shed quiets. Your witch steps out. She sees you. Again, that look. Not surprised. Not exactly pleased, but aware. Her head tilts. She steps forward and holds something out. It's a small piece of linen, folded neatly. You take it. Crush it between your fingers, she says, before you sleep. Then she turns and vanishes behind the curtain. You don't open it. Not yet. You just hold it. The scent is faint, clean, sharp, a little bitter. You think you'll dream strange things tonight. You don't sleep well. The cloth she gave you sits on the table beside your cot, untouched but not unnoticeable. It leaks its scent into the room like a secret trying to confess itself. You wake at least 3 times, convinced someone's leaning over you, whispering something just beyond your ability to hear. In the morning, your fingers itched to crush it, just once, just to see. But you don't, not yet. You return to the market, expecting everything to feel ordinary again. It doesn't. The stalls are the same. The chickens squawk in their usual frantic rhythm, but something's different. You smell too much now. There's citrus in the air. Not from oranges, there are none here this time of year, but from the stall where candles are sold. Someone's burning bergamot wax, probably hoping to attract customers. There's cinnamon coming from a baker who never used spices before. There's even patchouli lingering on a woman whose reputation involves neither money nor perfume. You're seeing it now. They're using it too. And yet, among all these smells, there's one you can't find any more hers. She's vanished again, like she always does. But this time, you're determined. You start asking around, careful questions, nothing to direct. She lives near the river, one woman says, not meeting your eye. And then, just as you're considering turning back, you catch it again. She doesn't live, mutters another, folding cloth like it's a prayer. Not perfumed like before, but raw, truer, crushed leaves, something musky and faint lilac. Eventually, someone points you toward the edge of town where the houses crumble into fields, and the fields blur into woods. You walk. The air changes. Less livestock, more moss, more pine. Your boots grow heavier with mud, scent. One of them's open, and beside it, a bowl, a wooden pestle, and the crushed remains of what looks like dried orange blossom. And is that bark not strong? And beneath it all, something powdery, floral, feminine, but in a way that unsettles. You follow it to a small cottage, half hidden by vines. The shutters are closed. The garden is wild, buzzing with bees who seem far too purposeful for such chaos. You knock. Letters from townspeople who swore they saw lists, instructions, smell-based codes. Some said perfume was just a way to remember. Others swore it was how spells were transmitted. You didn't need to speak Latin, you only needed a drop behind the ear and the right breeze. Anise for forgetting. Musk to disarm. Different ink, as if it's a shared collection. A code book passed from hand to hand. No answer, but the door's not locked. Inside, it smells like time itself forgot to leave. Dust, wood smoke, old paper. You step lightly, trying not to make the floorboards betray you. The walls are lined with shelves, jars, bundles, old books. You recognize some of it from the apothecary, others not at all. The air has thickened, the scent has changed again. You run your fingers along the table. The dust clings. You smell your fingertips, rose and something bitter. You pause, Historians still argue whether 18th century witches really kept recipes for potions or if later romanticized fiction invented that idea. But records exist. You find a sheet tucked under the table. It's not written in full sentences, just clusters of words. On the vanity few can call a cracked piece of glass and a shelf that a small tray holds 5 bottles, all unlabeled, all half full. You hear something, then footsteps. No, breathing. Not just manipulating men or evading suspicion, but preserving, creating something to outlast whispers and trials. You spin around, but no one's there. She's here, or was. You take a slow step toward the back room. A curtain blocks your view. You push it aside. Just a bedroom, but not an ordinary one. The bed is made perfectly, but there's a pillow that still holds the shape of a head. You lift one, unscrew the top. The smell is startling. Or maybe they did. Doesn't matter. Tobacco, violet, blood. You put it down quickly. Another bottle. This one fainter. Myrrh and lilac, maybe. Or some cousin of them. You stop after the third. You realize something. These aren't perfumes. They're memories. Each bottle smells like a scene, a moment, a spell in the shape of a scent. And maybe that's what she's been doing all along. The floor creaks behind you. You turn. She's there, not smiling, but not angry either. You opened it, she says, nodding toward the linen cloth you crushed without realizing. Your fingers still sting from the pressure. It's all right, she says. Most do. Her voice is different now, lower, less playful. You'll start to remember things that didn't happen, she says. You want to ask what it was, what she gave you. But instead, you ask the one thing you didn't expect to say. Will it fade? She smiles softly. No. Then she walks past you, toward the vanity, picks up one of the bottles, dabs a bit behind her ear. And just like that, the room smells like nothing. She's taken it with her. The strangest part is how quiet it gets once she's gone. No footsteps, no rustling dress, not even the usual hum of wind brushing the windows. But the scent, it's fled with her. Just the lingering impression that something just happened, something small, invisible, and irreversible. You look around the room. Everything is still in its place. The bottles on the vanity, the crushed flowers in the bowl, the shape in the pillow. You check your hands. They still carry her trace. A dry rose, maybe a bit of resin. You don't wipe it off. Instead, you take the linen cloth from your pocket, the one you crushed without meaning to. It's damp now, warm from your body, shaped vaguely like a person, sometimes believed to scream when uprooted. In the 18th century, it was simultaneously medicine and madness. She looked at him like a chemist watching an experiment unfold. Controlled variables, known reactions, and always one drop more than necessary. One court case cited a lady St. made from mandrake that caused a nobleman to believe he was a goose for 2 days. He never looked at the woman the same again. You hold it to your nose, hoping to catch more. It's faint, but there. Mandrake. You didn't notice before. Or maybe it wasn't there until now. She's leaning against a post behind the tavern, arms folded, head tilted. Mandrake root, popular in love potions, fertility rites, and particularly nasty accusations of witchcraft. You smile, sort of. A woman older, with anxious eyes, arguing with a vendor. Something about money, or healing, or betrayal. You can't make out the details, but you can see what she's holding. A tiny glass bottle, stoppered with wax, and it's empty. And now you finally understand the way she looked at that priest. not as a seductress, not even as a threat. You leave the cottage behind, stepping lightly over roots and stones. The sun is lower now, and the breeze carries with it something different. Someone's burning cloves nearby. Maybe someone else took notes. Back in the village square, a commotion brews. You drift closer, not to interfere, just to smell. The bottle carries the faintest echo of sandalwood, a touch of musk. That's when you spot her again. It's tiny, barely larger than a room, but it's dense, heavy, fragrant. Bowls of dried herbs, jars labeled in shorthand that would terrify a priest. Civet paste in a small box, scraped from a cloth. A muslin pouch stained deep red. A mortar, already fragrant from its last concoction. She's not in the center. She's not even close. Watching, not interfering, just pours hot water into the bowl and lets the steam rise. It's almost unbearable, sweet and sharp and thick. You breathe it anyway, almost bitter. She doesn't need to. The perfume did the talking hours ago. You approach her, slowly, not quite sure what you're going to say. You think about how many men fell in love, or into madness, because of a single whiff of something they couldn't name. Hands it to you. That wasn't just rose. You begin. But here, in this garden, it feels like the central truth. Words could be denied. Wounds could be healed. But scent, once it entered you, it lived there, changed things, altered the balance. She raises an eyebrow, almost amused. No, she says. It was never just rose. Not directly, not obviously. But you feel it. A pause. Then she speaks again. Do you want to see how it's made? You nod. She leads you back behind the tavern, through a crooked gate, and into a garden no one ever talks about. Here, you see her tools, a chipped copper still. You start with something they recognize, she says, grinding petals with a steady rhythm, rose, lavender, safety. Then she adds something darker, resinous, then something to unnerve, something they don't recognize, like mandrake, you offer. She nods, or castoreum, or storax, or the breath of someone you shouldn't miss. You pause. What? She doesn't answer. Lies are easier when they smell like memory, she murmurs. And you think about how scent lingers longer than reason. You think about that priest again. Did he dream of her last night? Did he think of heaven or of her wrists? Historians still argue whether perfume was the true tool of power in this era or whether it was just a symbol. She pours the mixture into a vial. Try this tonight. It's warm, smells like honey and pepper and fear. As you leave the garden, you feel people staring. You smell different now, and they know. You wake up not remembering the dreams, but remembering how they felt. They weren't nightmares. They weren't pleasant either. They were something in between. Like walking barefoot through a stranger's memories. You're not sure what you saw, but you're certain you weren't supposed to see it. The vial she gave you lies on the table, its cork snug and wax seal intact. You never opened it, so why does your pillow still smell like her? You sit up slowly. The morning light in the village has that dusty gold quality, where nothing feels quite real yet. You wash your face, dress, and step outside, and nearly gag. They're copying her, but not understanding. The woman who sold goat's milk last week now reeks of tuberose. A girl you've never seen in anything fancier than wool is brushing musk into her collar with a rabbit's foot. 3 women at the fountain are laughing louder than necessary, each with a different floral trail following their movements like a ghost. The air is thick with powder and pomade. Someone's gone heavy-handed with rosewater. You look around, something's changed. You pass a row of homes where curtains twitch. The village has picked up the scent game, but they're not playing with grace. And standing in the center of it all, her. But now she's dressed differently, less demure. Her shawl has been replaced by a silk wrap, dyed deep plum. Her hair's down, loosely tied with a red ribbon. She looks like power, embodied like someone who's no longer trying to stay unnoticed. And the village is noticing, or scream, because you know the truths, sort of. There was no magic in the bottle. Not the kind these people imagine. Just chemicals, reactions, memory triggers, clever timing. Men are trying not to look. Women are trying harder not to be seen looking. She turns slightly and smiles at no one. You can't smell her from this distance, which is suspicious in itself. A blend of smoke and citrus that's both intimate and untouchable. You speak. It means she's doing it on purpose. You're learning now. Scent is also what you withhold. You edge closer. You see someone pour too much rose water down her blouse, coughing as it hits her chest. Another dabs an oil straight onto her tongue. You wince. That one's going to regret it. That's when you hear the whispers, giving just enough sweetness one day, then rot the next, pulling attention, redirecting it, seducing and repelling on a cycle. A performance, scented. They say she slept with the magistrate. She cursed the fishmonger's daughter. That girl hasn't stopped crying. She put something in the priest's wine. He didn't preach last Sunday. You want to laugh or groan, but none of that matters, because perception in this village is gospel. You gesture to the display, to the crowd, to the performance she's orchestrated with nothing but scent and silk. You move closer to her, enough to smell it. A faint trail of labdanum and bergamot. You changed it, so I give them something to envy. She doesn't look at you. Not yet. Some say they were early feminists. Others say they were opportunists. Some say both. But watching her now, you understand it's not about belief. It's about leverage. I always change it, she says softly. It's what keeps them off balance. You realize she's been rotating scents deliberately, playing the village like an instrument. You glance around. The girls at the fountain are mimicking her again poorly. They don't know what they're doing, you mutter. She finally turns to face you. They're not supposed to, she replies. If they knew, they'd stop trying. You ask the question you've been holding since yesterday. Why do you do this? Not just survive, but this. People swarm, shouting. You rush forward, reflects. She shrugs, because fear keeps me alive, but fascination that buys me freedom. You blink. A woman screams against the same girl who overdosed on rosewater earlier. She's trying to speak, but can't. She continues, her voice lower now. They won't burn what they admire. They won't hang what they secretly envy. She waves it gently beneath the boy's nose. You're quiet for a while. Historians still argue whether the women branded as witches truly believed they were magical or whether they leaned into the illusion because it was better than being invisible. She tilts her head. You haven't opened your vial yet. You hesitate. I was scared. Her smile softens. You should be. That one's not for you. It's for them. You stare. What does it do? She leans in, just enough for you to catch it. Again, that warmth, that spice, that impossible scent that feels like a dare. It makes them think you're dangerous. You clutch the vial tighter. You don't know why you're shaking. That's when someone screams. It's coming from the square. A young man is rolling on the ground, clawing at his face, foam in his mouth. He's convulsing. You kneel and instantly catch it. The scent, bitter almonds, sweet rot, not hers, but definitely intentional. You pull back his collar and find a sachet pinned inside. Your witch looks at the pouch and frowns. Too much wormwood, she says under her breath. They never learn. She pulls something from her wrapper, small violin, uncorks it with a soft pop. The scent is clean, cooling, mint, maybe, or camphor. He gasps, coughs, then steadies. The crowd erupts in awe or fear, probably both, and she turns and walks away before they can decide whether to thank her or hang her. You follow again. You always do. Heart thudding from the boy's sudden collapse, the bitter almond scent still clinging to your collar. The way she moved, decisive, urgent, without even a heartbeat of hesitation. She glides through narrow alleys like a shadow, like a breeze slipping between walls, never running, never stumbling. You finally match her pace just as she reaches the edge of the woods, where trees lean like conspirators and the air changes cooler, older, weighted with silence. She doesn't turn to look at you. You saw what happens when they meddle with things they don't understand, she says. You nod, breath caught in your throat. He could have died. He still might, she replies calmly. Depends on how much wormwood he breathed in. Depends on what she mixed with it. Your mind flashes to the girl, how her perfume was too loud, chaotic, desperate. Beneath all the floral noise, you smelled fear. She wanted to become you. No, the witch says, finally pausing. She just wanted attention. That's not the same thing. The forest seems to inhale. Their petals are thin as breath. She crushes one and offers it to you. The village noise fades behind you, like a curtain falling. Out here, the world smells of pine and wet earth, simple things. Yet, even in this quiet, she bends the air around her, used to flavor liqueurs. Good for hexes, also scares away lice. Depends whose fingers are crushing it. Cure, curse, magic, murder, or maybe just marketing. Her fragrance tonight is softer, faintly sad, like beeswax, crushed clover, and forgotten letters folded too many times. She kneels and picks a cluster of star-shaped white flowers. Do you recognize this? She asks. At its center, a cold fire pit, surrounded by stones etched with strange symbols you've seen carved into door frames, painted over in panic, wedged into church walls. You join her. It's a rhythm now, this ritual, wordless but intimate. Marks older than any holy book, older than fear. She adds something from a pouch leaves you can't name. A sliver of resin that pops when it touches the heat. A strange smoke rises, sharp and metallic, tangy, like burnt fruit. It isn't pleasant, but it's not supposed to be. You sniff it, shake your head. Spignal, she explains. You follow without needing to be asked. You always do. You stare at the bloom, unsure. Historians argue what herbs like this were really for, she continues. The girl's trying to imitate her. It's the priest's strange absence. It's all coming to a boil. Marketing, you repeat. The balance is tipping. Fear is contagious. And someone's about to strike a match. She laughs, almost kindly. What is perfume, if not the illusion of power, bottled and sold? She says it like she's quoting an old rhyme. Then she turns again, vanishing deeper into the trees. Some ingredients aren't meant to be named, not out loud. Something wrong. She leads you to a small clearing. She starts gathering dry grass, small twigs, flakes of bark, a handful of moss. The fire sputters to life. You sit across from her, eyes stinging from the smoke. Then she says, "Tonight, they need to be afraid." She opens it slowly, lets the smoke pass through its teeth. She closes the fan that gets you burned. You blink. Why? Because the village is shifting. The crowd is swelling. A dream of someone whispering your name in the dark. A phantom kiss on your wrist. You feel faint, but women feel it too, if they've been touched by longing. There's weariness in her face, the kind carved over years. You think of the boy, the way people had watched, whispered. She pulls out a bundle of tiny wax cones and sets one beside the fire. She lights it. He'll sweat, forget his words, just long enough to shake them. The scent flares into the air, resinous, sharp as ink, tinged with ozone. It smells like time being burned. The smell is immediate and feral, charred, fig, goat hair, a bite of clove, and something else. You recoil. What is that? A blend, she says. You don't press. The goal isn't popularity, she adds. It's permanence, respect, fear when necessary. You frown. Isn't there a gentler way? She looks at you, for the first time since the village. Not here, not anymore. These people don't hear truth, they hear spectacle, so we give them a show. She uncorks a small vial and dabs its contents onto her skin. Tomorrow I'll visit the priest, she says. Slip him something mild. Won't they blame you? They will. That's the point. She removes a folded fan from her cloak. It's black lace, embroidered with crimson roses. Not for heat, for signal. They understand this, she whispers. Theater, fragrance, mystery, but plain speech. The smoke curls upward like memory, like incense from another life. And you remember lavender brushed into your hair. She watches you, reading your face. It works better on men, she says softly. You steady yourself. The fire cracks. The forest draws in tighter. And then it hits you. She never lies. But she never gives the truth either. She lets you believe. And now you wonder, how many have followed her into these woods and never come out quite the same? The fire burns low, and your thoughts burn with it. You sit in silence for a while, watching the smoke drift upward and dissolve into the leaves. The scent she conjured still hangs around your shoulders like a veil. You don't know whether to feel flattered or trapped. She hasn't spoken in minutes, just stirs the embers with a twig, adding resin now and then, watching the smoke shift its tone. Now sweeter, now smoky, now tinged with the sharpness of old parchment. You ask, finally, how did you learn all this? She doesn't look at you, just smiles. My mother, and hers before that. You imagine her lineage, now not a straight line of witches with pointed hats, but generations of women passing down recipes like secrets. Maybe some really were healers, midwives, gardeners. Others, like her, learned how to make themselves unavoidable. Historians still argue whether so-called witches really passed down knowledge like this, she says, echoing your thoughts. But how else do you think women survived when they couldn't own land or speak freely in court? The fire pops, you lean forward. But isn't this dangerous? Oh yes, she says, brightly. Very. And then she reaches into her pocket and pulls out a tiny vial, much smaller than the one she gave you before. This one is carved from bone, with a cap sealed in beeswax. This, she says, is insurance. You stare. Against what? Against the trial. The word hits like a cold slap. You look at her differently now, trying to read the distance in her eyes. But there's no fear there, just calculation. I'm not planning to need it, she says. But I always keep one ready. She doesn't offer it to you, doesn't open it, just places it on the ground between you. You're afraid to touch it. What's in it? She doesn't answer. Something strong, she says, finally. Something that makes them forget everything but how to leave me alone. You want to believe she's bluffing, that it's just more scent and shadow play. But part of you doesn't. You think of all the other women you've seen in this village, some who keep their heads down, others who stare at her with open jealousy. You wonder how many of them tried to be like her and failed, or succeeded and vanished. She picks the vial back up and tucks it away. Then her gaze settles on you, still, steady. What do you smell right now? She asks. You blink, you sniff the air. The obvious answer is smoke, wood, and resin. But under that, something sweeter, faint citrus and earth, lemongrass, soil, and myrrh. She nods. Good, you're learning. It's not a compliment. It's a measurement. You sit back, and suddenly you understand that everything with her is part of the same alchemy. The way she walks, the timing of her smiles, the stillness before she speaks. Every moment is scented, curated, sharpened. You ask her, do you ever just smell like you? She considers this. No one wants to know what I smell like, she says softly. Not really. They want the myth. They want mystery. They want their fear in a bottle they can uncork when convenient. You shake your head. That sounds lonely. She gives you a look so sharp it could slice dried sage. Lonely is safer. Then she stands. The forest is darker now. Not quite night, but the kind of dusk that stretches shadows and warps sound. She gathers the fan, the pouches, the bits of herbs she dropped, packs it all away. Then she turns to you. Walk back with me. So you do. It's quiet at first, but as you near the edge of the trees, you hear it. Bells tolling, not for mass, for gathering. Something's happened. She sighs, almost bored. They've decided. You ask, decided what? She doesn't answer. At the village gate, people are already forming a crowd. You hear fragments. The boy's fever hasn't broken. The priest is babbling. The smell did. You smell it. Someone shouts, she cursed the well. Another, my child won't eat. And then, the word that lands like a match on dry hay, which, you flinch. She doesn't. You turn to her, panic rising in your throat. But she's smiling again. Not wide, not cruel, just prepared. She leans in and whispers. Now the real spell begins. Then she steps forward past you, past the gate, past the stunned faces and into the circle of accusations. They part for her. They smell her, and they hesitate. It's like watching a performance choreographed by invisible threads. She walks straight into the town square, eyes ahead, posture tall, steps silent. No fear, no flinch, only perfume. You smell it before you see what happened. A warm veil of amber and vetiver rolling off her like fog. It's seductive without being sweet, ancient without being dusty, and above all it's confident. And they don't know what to do with that. The townsfolk, still buzzing with adrenaline and superstition, recoil slightly as she passes. A woman clutches her child tighter. A butcher mutters a prayer under his breath. Someone else hurls the word again but it dies halfway out, swallowed by scent. You watch it work in real time. Their rage dims. Their posture shifts. They start to doubt their own certainty. She's playing the line again, just believable enough to be feared, just beautiful enough to confuse. A man steps forward, the blacksmith, big, broad, eyes wide, but fists clenched like he'd rather use them than talk. He doesn't speak. She does. You all have questions, she says calmly, but none of you ask them. She lets that hang, like smoke, in a still room. A murmur rolls through the crowd. Then someone from the back shouts, "You poisoned the boy." "I healed the boy," she replies, without raising her voice. "You can ask his mother." "I saw the sachet," the girl from the well blurts out. "It reeked of ... of rot." The witch tilts her head slightly. "Then it wasn't mine." The crowd shifts again. You can almost see it, a seesaw of tension and doubt. She's bought herself a few minutes. That's when the priest appears, not in robes, not walking with purpose. He stumbles from the chapel door like he's been roused from fevered dreams, eyes glassy, cheeks pale. The crowd parts for him. He stops in front of her, breathing hard. She doesn't move. He speaks her name wrongly, like he's forgotten it halfway through. "Did you ... did you do this to me?" She looks at him, calm as dawn. "You drank from the same cup you offer others. Maybe it's soured." He recoils slightly. "Blasphemy," someone whispers, but not with conviction. You can smell it again, her perfume shifting mid-conversation. It's subtle, but it changes. She's applied something from her sleever, roll-in oil, probably. Now it's muskier, grounded, almost maternal, a soothing scent. And sure enough, the energy cools. People blink slowly. A woman lowers her raised hand. The child starts humming to himself. And then, the fringe detail you wouldn't believe unless you saw it. One of the chickens, tied to a nearby post, breaks loose, runs straight toward her, stops, pecks at her hem, then sits beside her feet, calm as sleep. The villagers gasp. She just smiles. "Even the animals know peace when they find it," she says. "You're not sure if she planned that. You're not sure she didn't." Historians still argue whether animal behavior was genuinely used as proof of witchcraft in the 18th century. But stories abound: cats who lingered too long, dogs who barked at the wrong moment, pigs who refused to be slaughtered after being fed by that strange woman. It was theater, most of it. But people believed theater when it smelled right. The priest suddenly collapses to one knee. She crouches beside him like a friend, a nurse, a mother, and dabs something on his temples from the vial you now recognize, the same one she used on the boy. He gasps again, like a puppet reanimated. And then she turns to the crowd. "I have no need to curse anyone," she says, "but I can cure what fear makes sick." And there it is, her greatest trick. She hasn't denied anything. She hasn't explained, justified, begged. She's offered them the option to reframe this entire performance as benevolence. Because fear is exhausting. But gratitude makes people forget everything else. The crowd starts to murmur again, but this time it's softer. They're already rewriting the story. You see it in real time. The girl with the sachet, now stepping back. The blacksmith crosses his arms, but no longer clenched. The priest, pale, shaking, but no longer pointing fingers. She rises, turns, begins to walk away. No one stops her. They simply let her go. You follow again, though now it feels more like she's letting you. When you finally speak, it's barely more than a whisper. "That was dangerous." She nods. "They'll come back tomorrow with new fears, new stories." "Then what?" She shrugs. "Then I'll change the scent again." You walk in silence beside her. The town fades behind you, swallowed in sunset and simmering confusion. They let her go. For now, but the tension hasn't broken. It's only changed shape. Shifted from accusation to awe, from rage to wariness. A temporary truce, held together by perfume and poise. She knows it, and so do you. As the road turns toward her cottage again, she finally breaks the silence. Tomorrow, they'll try flattery instead of fire. Of the girl with the rosewater, the mother with the sick child, the man with shaking hands, and the priest, how he looked at her when he fell to his knees, not with hatred, with helplessness. You glance at her. They'll come for help. No, she says, smirking. They'll come for favors. You think of all the women in the village who tried to mimic her. Is this what you wanted, you ask? To be their last resort? Mixed with something grassy, almost green? It makes her feel younger, which unsettles you more than the heavy musks ever did. No, she replies, but it's what I planned for. A new pouch hangs by the window. The scent she wears now is gentlerly, maybe? She opens her garden gate. You said you don't wear your own scent. The bees hum lazily over night-blooming jasmine. Her cat, yes. Of course, she has one slips between her feet with a slow, practiced stretch. Drops a few leaves into the pot verbena, you think, and fennel. Inside, the room still smells like memory. But it's rearranged. You notice it instantly. The bottles are in new positions. A jar is missing. That doesn't mean I don't remember what it is. She's adjusting. Already. You sit at the table while she starts boiling water. You clear your throat. I said no one wants to smell it, she corrects. What is it? She turns slowly. Salt, she says, and chamomile, and smoke. You nod. That sounds sad. Only to people who don't understand it. It's bitter, but warm. It clears your head and muddles your thoughts at the same time. You sip the tea in silence when it's ready. She sits across from you, studying your face the way someone might read a handwritten letter, pausing when the ink smudges. You've changed, she says. You look up. How? You're not scared anymore. You're curious. Should I be scared? She smiles, again just enough to unsettle. Oh, always. But curiosity is more useful. You want to ask something bigger, something with weight. But all that comes out is, how do you keep track of it all? She raises an eyebrow. How you crushed it. How it haunted your dreams. How it made you remember things you're no longer sure were real. The sense, you clarify. How do you remember what each one does, what it says, how it feels? She leans forward. It's not about ingredients. It's about narrative. You blink. Each blend tells a story. She continues. Some stories end in trust, some in tears, some in very sudden silence. You swallow hard. She doesn't flinch. Historians still argue whether witches like me were storytellers or poisoners, she says, but they always overlook the middle path. What's that? She sips her tea, gazes out the window. The scent that makes people lie to themselves. The words linger. You suddenly remember the first cloth she gave you. The scent of her garden drifts in through the open shutters. Sweet basil, dry lavender, a trace of mint. Did you use that on me? You ask. She tilts her head. Does it matter? You look down at your cup. The steam smells like citrus and regret. She stands, then goes to her shelf, picks up a vial. It's different blue, glass, sealed with leather cord. This, she says, is truth. She doesn't hand it to you, just sets it down between you. It's dangerous, not because of what it reveals, but because of what it makes undeniable. You stare at it. She watches. You could wear it once, just once. You'll never want to again. What happens? You stop fooling yourself, that's all. Trying to wipe away what I've done, as if the scent of plants can undo memory. You lean back, the chair creaking. You don't touch it, not yet. Night creeps around the edges of the room now, and beneath it all, something else. You smell it before you realize what it means. Burnt wax. You both turn your heads toward the window. In the distance, toward the village, a column of smoke is rising. You stand instantly. She doesn't move. Is it the chapel, you ask? She closes her eyes for a moment. No. Someone's burning herbs. Lots of them. Mugwort, rue, yarrow, a cleansing. You ask? They're not burning me, she says. They're burning protection. You're halfway to the door. Should we do something? She finally rises. No, she says. We let them burn. You stare at her. Why? Because they'll feel safe afterward. And people who feel safe stop looking for witches. She turns down the lamps, slowly, one by one, and the room darkens until the only thing left is scent. You don't sleep that night, not truly. You lie in the dark, on the narrow bed she offered, breathing slowly, eyes tracing the wooden beams above. Outside, crickets chirp with a rhythm that feels rehearsed. Somewhere in the trees, a fox screams once, then goes silent. But inside the cottage, the air stays still except for the smell. She changed it again. While you lay there in half-dream, she adjusted the room. You're sure of it. The scent is unfamiliar, sweet but dry, almost dusty, like a forgotten letter tucked in a sunlit drawer. You taste sandalwood, old silk, the edge of cinnamon. It wraps around your head and keeps your thoughts from settling. You sit up finally, hours before dawn, and find her already awake. She's at the table, mixing something in a small clay bowl. No fire, just candlelight and movement. She doesn't look surprised to see you. You hear it, she asks quietly. You listen. Nothing at first, then yes, a steady, distant knocking from the village. A rhythm you recognize all too well. Wood on wood, doors pounded open. You whisper, they're searching. She nods, for evidence. Of what? Of whatever story they've agreed on overnight. The knocking grows louder, more urgent, more homes now. She continues stirring. They'll find nothing, not today, not unless someone lies. And someone will. You both know that. Not out of malice, out of fear. Because it's easier to say she made me do it than I wanted to. You glance toward your cloak, where your vial still sits. The one she said makes you seem dangerous. Should I wear it? No. Why not? She looks at you, finally. There's warmth in her eyes, but no softness. Because you're not ready to carry what it brings. You believe her. She stands, and for the first time you notice she's dressed in black. Not mourning black, not solemn black. A rich, ink-dark gown with crimson stitching and cuffs lined in fur. It makes her taller somehow, older, timeless. The scent on her tonight is sharp, anise, iron, and crushed marigold, like a funeral with secrets. You help her pack. She says little, just gestures. This bottle, that pouch, a folded cloth, a scrap of vellum with charcoal markings. Then she wraps a final object in oilskin and places it gently into a wooden box. What's that? She doesn't answer. She tightens the cord and seals the box with wax. By the time you both step outside, the eastern sky has begun to pale. Smoke still rises from the village gray now, not black. Whatever they burned has mostly gone out. But the scent lingers in the wind. It smells like scorched rosemary and dry hay. Cleansing rituals, yes, but done in panic, not faith. You walk slowly, each step crunching frost that settled overnight. They'll accuse someone else first, she says. Someone easy, someone expendable. You know who she means. The girl with the rosewater. She tried to be me, the witch says softly. But she didn't understand the cost. Can you help her? I could, but I won't. The answer stings. Why not? She stops walking. Because if I help her, then I'm what they say I am. You realize she's right. Saving the girl proves the myth. It solidifies the story the villagers are desperate to tell. So you ask, what will you do instead? She smiles, tight and unkind. I'll give them a new story. You reach the edge of the village. Doors open. Faces appear behind shutters. People lean into the morning air with hope and hate stitched into their expressions. And then the bell rings. Not the chapel bell, the town bell, the one used only for fire or judgment. The witch doesn't flinch. She steps forward just as the priest appears from behind the chapel, flanked by 2 elders. His skin is sallow, his eyes rimmed with sleep, but he's wearing his robes again. The performance must go on. They're holding a ledger. She sees it. They've written their version, she murmurs. You whisper, then what do we do? She smiles faintly. Rewrite it, 1 drop at a time. She reaches into her sleeve, pulls a bottle so small you almost miss it. She dabs it behind each ear, on her neck, and finally touches a trace to the edge of her lips. You don't recognize the scent, but the wind carries it toward the crowd, and you see it happen. Their shoulders shift, their eyes change focus, their mouths part slightly, unsure whether to speak or breathe. She walks forward into the fire they've prepared and smiles. The bell tolls again, sharper this time. You flinch. She doesn't. Her feet continue over cobbled stones, through the village square that now swells with bodies, people roused early by whispers, suspicion, and the promise of spectacle. The priest stands ahead, trying to look composed, but you see the tremor in his hands. The smell of incense clings to his robes like a disguise. She stops just before the stone platform at the center, the same one where livestock are judged, and sometimes people. The priest steps forward. He opens the ledger. Do you deny placing a curse upon the boy? A rustle in the crowd. She tilts her head. Was he cursed? The priest falters. He suffered fits, night terrors, until you intervened. Then he was cured. Laughter ripples somewhere in the crowd, quickly silenced. He tries again. Do you deny giving the girl a sachet of unnatural herbs? I deny she knew how to use it. A pause. The elders exchange glances. One speaks. Why do your perfumes change so often? She smiles. Because people do. Why do animals follow you? Because they're smarter than most people. Another stifled laugh, this time from the blacksmith. You scan the faces. They're not sure what they want anymore. A villain, a miracle worker, a distraction from their own desires. She knows. That's why she wears this scent today. It's heady, strange, a blend of ginger and stone fruit, and something spicy you can't place. It coils around the crowd like invisible ribbon, threading through suspicion and softening its edges. They smell her before they can judge her. Historians still argue, she says loudly now, turning to face the people, whether witches were born, made, or invited. A beat of silence. She continues. You invited me the day you asked me to save your son, your mother, your goat. Chuckles, now, nervous ones. You invited me when you took my oils and asked me to make your husband fall back in love. You invited me when you stole from my window garden and called it medicine. The ledger trembles in the priest's hands. She takes one step closer. You called it magic when it worked. You called it witchcraft when it scared you. No one moves. Even the children stop fidgeting. She walks up the steps of the platform, uninvited, and places something on the stone one of her bottles, uncorked. The breeze catches it. Immediately, the air floods with a scent like wood smoke and dried fruit and rain on ash. Familiar but strange, comforting and unsettling. It makes them feel something, though they can't name it. This is what I use, she says. This is all I use. She extends her arms. Search me, burn it, burn me if you must. No one moves, and there it is. She's given them exactly what they needed, the illusion of choice. If they don't punish her, it's because they chose mercy. If they do, it will feel like regret. A woman steps forward, the mother of the boy. Her face is pale, hands clenched. She speaks in a whisper, but everyone hears it. She saved my son. Silence. The priest looks up. Another voice now. The girl who spilled rosewater on herself. She never gave me anything. I copied her. And now more one by one. She gave my mother fennel tea. She soothed my daughter's cough with honey and thyme. She gave me a vial to remember my dead wife. The tide turns. The priest looks sick. He closes the ledger. Then an act that seems both cowardly and wise. He nods once and turns away. The bell doesn't toll again. You watch the crowd hesitate, then melt. No cheers, no applause, just silent dispersal. No one wants to admit they almost hanged salvation. You exhale, but she stays still. She watches them walk away, each step slow, unsure, their noses filled with her, their memories rewritten. Only when the last back disappears does she descend the steps. You meet her at the bottom. You could have died. She nods. But I didn't. What now? She looks at you. Now they'll be quiet. For how long? She shrugs. Until the next fear needs a name. You walk side by side again, through the quiet streets, past windows that suddenly close when you glance at them. At her gate, you stop. I should go, you say. She nods, but not sadly. Before you turn, she pulls a final vial from her cloak, clear, almost empty. A single drop glimmers at the bottom like a heartbeat. What's this? You ask. She presses it into your hand. For when they come for you, you hold it like a promise you don't understand yet. She opens the gate, and behind her, you swear the garden leans forward to listen. You don't open the vial, not that day, not the next. It sits, tiny and glassy, in the softest corner of your satchel, like a pearl too perfect to wear. You can't stop thinking about what she said for when they come for you. And now, every time someone knocks on your door, every time a neighbor lingers too long at the edge of your garden, every time a shadow stretches wrong, your hand drifts toward it, just in case. The village, meanwhile, doesn't speak of her, not directly. They talk around her, through euphemism and half-jokes, the way people mention bad weather when they mean grief. They refer to her only as that woman or her at the edge. No one visits her openly. But somehow, she still never lacks eggs, thread, or clean water. You begin noticing subtle changes. A new girl sweeping the apothecary floor who smells faintly of lemon balm and goat milk. A baker who adds chamomile to his loaves and says it was always his family recipe. You hear whispers of someone selling small pouches of lavender in the market, stamped with a wax seal you swear looks familiar. They're mimicking her again, carefully this time, and no one's laughing. You visit her less, not by choice, more by instinct. like animals who scatter before a storm, not out of fear, but reverence. The scents change, but she never does. Or maybe she does so expertly that it feels like permanence. On your next visit, her house smells like thyme and dusted ginger, a traveling scent, one that makes you feel like leaving, even as it welcomes you. She greets you with 2 words. They're asking you, blink, who, everyone. You sit. She slides you a folded note, an invitation. The town council wants her to teach, not openly, but with advice. They're asking about herb lore, soaps, salves, what keeps infants from choking on bad air. They're calling it domestic wisdom. You read the note twice. Do you trust them? No, but you'll go. She nods. Because they think this makes me tame. She sips from a cup of pale green liquid, steaming faintly. They want the power, she says, but they don't want the blame. So you'll teach them anyway. She meets your gaze. I'll give them enough to think they're safe. It's not bitterness in her voice. It's not even resentment. It's strategy. You realize that for her, teaching isn't surrender. It's colonizing. She slides a book toward you across the table, handbound, no title, just symbols on the cover, ones you recognize now. She lets you open it. The pages smell of dried ink and faded mint. Each page is written in a careful, looping hand, with pressed petals between the leaves. It's not a spell book, exactly, but it isn't not one either. You ask, you wrote this? She shakes her head. Copied it from the one before me. The thought makes your fingers tremble. Why me? You're the only one who never tried to sell what I gave you. You look down at the page beneath your fingers. There's a recipe for something called fogs, patience, a blend of myrrh, violet leaf, and smoke-cured bark. You whisper, what does it do? It makes people believe you're listening, even when you're not. You stare, then laugh, quiet, half horrified. That's terrible. It's useful. Later, as you walk home, the wind shifts again. A scent follows you, something warm, slightly bitter. It takes a moment to name it. Wormwood, but softer, grounded with nutmeg. It's the scent of readiness, of defense, of doors left unlocked because someone made the village feel just secure enough. That night, you place the vial she gave you onto your bedside shelf, not hidden, not opened, just visible. You realize that, like her, you're learning how to walk the fine line between mystery and safety. And as you drift to sleep, you wonder if someone were to ask you for help tomorrow, would you say no? They come to your door just after sunrise. 3 women, no men. That's how you know they're serious. They stand politely, hands clasped, heads slightly bowed, as though praying for your cooperation. Each holds something, a cloth, a jar of dried fruit, a loaf of bread so perfect it has to mean something. They don't ask to come in. They don't have to. We heard you were close, one says. She doesn't say the witch's name. No one ever does. But the way her voice hesitates around close is enough. You invite them in, quietly, without ceremony. You don't offer tea. They wouldn't drink it anyway. Instead, you wait. One of them, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, smells faintly of apple cider vinegar, speaks first. My daughter's getting married. Her hair falls out in clumps when she's anxious. The local barber says it's nerves. I was wondering if there's something gentle. Another steps forward. I've been dreaming of wolves every night. I don't want it to mean something, but I think it does. The third, younger than you by half a decade, places the jar of fruit on your table. They said you might know how to make someone forget something. Not forever, just enough. They don't ask if you can. They ask if you will. You don't say yes. You say, "Let me see what I have." And just like that, you step over a line. You open your satchel and remove the book she gave you. Not the whole thing, just one page, folded carefully. You read aloud as if it's nothing. A recipe for roots of stillness. One for sweet breath before sleep. You mention clove, ginger, bay leaf. Nothing threatening. They nod. They don't write anything down, but they'll remember. These aren't fools. They're careful. When they leave, one of them touches your arm and says, "We're grateful." We won't say anything, which means they'll say everything, but only behind closed doors. By sunset, 2 more come. Then a man, pretending to be lost, asking after those sachets for moths. You don't correct him. You make 3 more. None of it is dangerous yet, but that night, the air in your home smells different, and not just from the oils you've boiled or the dried petals you've crushed. It smells of anticipation, of footsteps nearing. You open your shutters for air, and it hits you like a whisper, her scent. Not the same as before. This one is cleaner, almost silvery, like snow melt over quartz. It makes your mouth water and your memory swim. She's outside. You find her by the tree near the well. The one they say hasn't run dry in 200 years. She's seated calmly, cat in her lap, gazing up at the stars. "You started," she says, "before you can speak." You sit beside her. "I didn't mean to." No one ever does. Magic doesn't begin with a spell. It begins with a favor. You nod. They think I'm harmless. She smiles faintly. "Perfect. Keep it that way." You want to ask her how long she'll stay, whether she's preparing to vanish again. But something about the way her perfume moves tonight, barely there, almost reluctant, tells you she's already halfway gone. Historians still argue whether we trained replacements, she says, as though plucking the thought from your mind. But that's a vanity. Witches don't train. We reveal. You blink. To who? She turns, eyes glinting like oiled paper in candlelight. To the ones who already know. Silence stretches between you. "I'm not ready," you whisper. No one is. You look at her. Will they come for me like they came for you? Her expression softens. They'll come differently. She pulls something from her sleeve, a pendant, plain, carved from bone, with a spiral etched into its face. She doesn't offer it. She just places it on the well's edge. For when they ask who taught you, you want to say thank you. You want to say don't go. But instead, you breathe deeply and realize you've already memorized the way she smells tonight. You'll never smell it again. You don't need to. It's yours now. By the next market day, your table has a permanent place, not in the main square too visible, but just off the stone path near the fig trees, where the shade stays cool and the gossip flows more freely. They don't call you a witch, of course not. They call you clever, helpful, soothing. They buy your sachets, your teas. They ask quiet questions and pretend they're not desperate for your answers. And you answer only what you want. You've learned the rhythm of it, how to keep your scent light, inviting, but forgettable. A little orange peel here, a hint of crushed basil there, just enough to be remembered as pleasant, never dangerous. The woman at the edge. Though now the edge feels like it's moved inward, closer to the village center, closer to you. She hasn't come back since that night by the well, but her presence hovers like fog on warm stone. You still find gifts at your doorstep, bundles of dried herbs, slips of parchment with strange recipes, a stone that smells faintly of cinnamon and salt. You don't ask who leaves them. You already know. One morning, a boy appears, no older than 8, skin dusted with flour. He holds out a finger, swollen and red. "Bee sting," he says plainly. You nod. Take out a little cloth soaked in rosemary and vinegar. You wrap his hand. He winces, but doesn't pull away. "Better now," you say. He blinks. "Will I dream?" You smile, "Only if you want to." He grins, runs off. Behind you, a merchant woman watches. You expect suspicion. Instead, she says, "Would you teach my daughter to steep lavender properly?" You don't answer at first. You're thinking, because teaching is dangerous, but so is being the only one who knows. Eventually, you nod. "Bring her tomorrow." And just like that, it begins again. Historians still argue whether witchcraft ever truly died out, whether it was stamped out, buried, or simply rebranded. But what they always miss, what they refuse to see, that it never had one shape to begin with. It was never just curses or cauldrons. It was this, the patient repetition, the slow, smoky shift from remedy to reverence. The way a village forgets who it feared once enough time passes, and their children grow strong. You keep your recipes in a plain wooden box. No sigils, no strange locks, just notes, doodles, ratios adjusted in pencil. The smell of ink and fennel and beeswax rising when you open it. Sometimes you catch a whiff of huriel or imagined, it's hard to say. That burnt clove scent that always meant she'd been there first. You wonder where she went, whether she watches from afar, or whether she's gone entirely, left you the last trace of herself in a single breath she exhaled near your door. You teach 3 girls now, quietly, 1 hour a week, behind the inn, near the drying lines. You teach them not just how to mix and measure, but how to observe, how to listen to what people don't say, how to keep their bottles clean, their stories cleaner, how to disappear when needed, and how to linger just long enough to be remembered. You never call it witchcraft. They don't either. They call it knowing things. Sometimes they giggle. Sometimes they whisper to each other about the colors of the oils, the way their mothers react when they bring home sleep sachets. But once one of them asks, "Will they ever come for us?" You pause, then say gently, "If they do, make sure you smell like something that makes them hesitate." She nods, and you know she understands. At night, you still sleep lightly. Your fingers drift unconsciously toward the little vial on your shelf. It's half full now. You used it once. A man who tried too hard to be kind. He walked away without knowing why his voice had faltered. You felt no guilt, only caution. In dreams, you hear her voice, not instructing, not warning, just humming, the same melody she whistled while grinding dried roots that day in her kitchen. You hum it sometimes too, while you work. No one recognizes it, but one day someone will. The day they dig up the old well, you know something has shifted. It starts with the boy, the same one you treated for the bee sting months ago. He runs to your market table, cheeks flushed, dragging a bundle of excitement behind him. "They're pulling up bones," he announces breathlessly. "Real bones." You freeze. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Just enough that your hands stop moving over the cloth sachets. The bones aren't hers. You know that instinctively. She never stayed long enough to die in one place. But bones are symbolic. Bones mean memory. And memory, if it surfaces at the wrong time, can be fatal. By noon, the story has changed twice. The bones belonged to a horse. Then, no, a child. No, wait, they found charms buried with them. That last part makes your scalp tingle. You visit the site at dusk. The well is cordoned off with ropes and trembling speculation. A young man stands guard, though you doubt he could stop a determined wind. You watch from a distance. You're not the only one. Others hover at the edge of the crowd, pretending to inspect apples, pears, cracks in the ground. The scent of disturbance is everywhere. Literally, someone's burned sage, far too aggressively. You cough quietly into your sleeve. You circle back home without being noticed. But when you open your door, she's there, sitting at your table, just like that. No sound, no greeting, just presence. She's older, or maybe the light makes her seem that way. Her hair is streaked with something not quite gray. Her skin glows faintly like parchment held up to a candle. She smells empty, like an unfinished thought. You sit across from her. Bones. You ask. She nods once. Real? She shrugs. Does it matter? You exhale through your nose. It might. She slides something across the table. A sachet, heavy, knotted shut. The string is dyed crimson. What's this? For memory, she says. Yours? No, theirs. You stare. Historians still argue, she begins, as if resuming a conversation paused for years. Whether objects can hold power or only stories do. She gestures toward the sachet. They'll need a story soon, one that fits their fear but doesn't burn down the village. You nod slowly, and this is a story they'll find in a week, tucked behind a loose stone, hidden just well enough to feel like their discovery. What does it say? She leans forward, voice like silk over splinters, that the bones belonged to a woman who healed too well, too often, that she was mourned, buried quietly, with flowers. Your eyes narrow. It's fiction. She meets your gaze. It's survival. You don't question her. You don't need to, because you remember now what she always said. Truth is what keeps you alive, but story is what keeps you safe. You take the sachet. I'll place it tonight. She stands. So do you. Will you leave again? She tilts her head. Why stay? You've taken root. You feel something stir inside your ribs. Not pride, not fear, responsibility. You nod. She walks to the door, but pauses. I smelled rosemary on you yesterday, she says. You smile. I was nervous. Good, she replies. Keep it close. People trust what they've tasted before. Then she's gone. No cloak, no trail of perfume, just absence, sharp and quiet. You light no candles that night. No one stops you. You press it into the gap between two stones, just as she said. And you whisper, a prayer, not a spell, just a single word. Story. When you return home, your hands still smell of cinnamon and crushed clove, the scent of reassurance, of redirection. You sleep soundly for the first time in weeks. It doesn't take long. By midweek, the sachet is discovered, exactly as planned. A mason repairing the outer wall near the well finds it. His wife, bless her overactive imagination, claims it was warm to the touch, that it pulsed, that she heard something when he held it close. You resist the urge to roll your eyes. Instead, you lean back at your market table and listen. Within hours, the town has settled on a name for the woman in the well. They call her Marguerite. You've never met a Marguerite, which is why the name works. Vague enough to feel real, romantic enough to pity, and most importantly, harmless. They construct her narrative in layers. Like all good myths, she was a healer, of course. She died of grief, naturally. Some say it was a lost child. Others, a forbidden love. A few even say she was betrayed by another witch. You wince at that part, but it passes. No one connects her to your teacher. That would be inconvenient. Instead, Marguerite becomes something else, an echo of what the village now claims to admire. A cautionary tale, yes, but one dipped in honey. A statue is discussed, a bench at least. They begin planting wildflowers near the well's edge. You watch all of it and say nothing. Your own standing grows. More visits, more whispered questions, more requests for help sleeping, healing, forgetting. You give what you can, hold back what you must. Your apprentices, you call them that, now begin to take over small tasks. One prepares the oils, another handles the herbs, the third just listens. She's the most dangerous of all. You teach them about balance, about ratios of scent. Yes, but also power. Don't be too useful, you say, and never be essential. It sounds cruel. It's survival. Historians still argue whether such advice came from fear or wisdom, but you know they're the same thing. One night, during a thunderstorm, there's a knock at your door. You expect someone wet, shivering, terrified. Instead, it's the priest, not the old one he retired, or perhaps was politely dismissed. This one is young, fresh-faced, more scholar than zealot. He smiles awkwardly. I heard you know what to do with nettle rash. You blink. I do my arms. He pulls back his sleeve, and there it is, angry red. As you prepare the washwater vinegar, a touch of peppermint tea watches you. Not suspicious, curious. I read once. He begins that perfumes were how witches seduced saints. You raise an eyebrow. Then saints must have had very weak noses. He laughs. Do you believe in evil? He asks suddenly. You pause. Then, I believe in consequences. He nods. So do I. You apply the wash. He flinches, then relaxes. This is your first visit, you say. He nods. Won't be the last. You watch him leave, dripping and grateful. And just like that, the final door creaks open. You're not afraid. Not anymore. The next morning, your apprentices arrive early. You hand them their tasks, then take a quiet moment by the window. The sky smells of morning and memory. Your shelf holds fewer vials now, because so many live elsewhere, woven into homes, pillows, gardens. You realize the village no longer tolerates you. It depends on you. And that is far more powerful. You light a small stick of incense, your own blend, birch, fennel, and a trace of orange blossom. The room warms instantly. You smile. The scent is called Turning Point, and it smells exactly like now. You never mean to become a myth. No one does. It begins slowly, whispers from children about how you always know when they're lying. Farmers claiming their cows give richer milk after sipping your gut oil. A traveling painter requests to sketch you, calling you the sage of smoke. You laugh. You say no. But the rumor spreads anyway. Soon, the stories arrive before you do. You pass through the market and hear them told in third person, as if you weren't there. You saved a dying bird with breath alone. You cursed a man for beating his dog. You never age because you eat lavender before bed. Some are true, most aren't, but you don't correct them. She taught you better than that. Let them talk. Stories are your camouflage. And besides, you're busy. The village has grown. Trade has opened. There are strangers, now merchants, pilgrims, drifters. They ask questions that aren't quite polite. One tries to buy your entire shelf of red oil. You refuse, gently. He leaves. The next day he returns with a gift, a roll of silk and a bottle of amber resin. You accept it carefully. Even faraway places know your name now. One night, the mayor sends word. A banquet is planned in your honor. You say no, not because you're afraid, but because celebrity is dangerous. When the village chooses to love you loudly, it's only ever a prelude to burning. Instead, you host a quieter gathering, just apprentices and a few old friends. Everyone brings something: wine, cheese, a story they haven't told before. That's the rule. One apprentice tells of the time she swallowed perfume as a child, thinking it would make her dreams sweeter. Another reveals she saw the witch 3 days ago at the edge of the forest. You blink. Are you sure? She didn't speak, just left something under a stone. Later, you find it. Not a bottle, not a spell, a note. 5 words. You're doing it too gently. You laugh out loud. The next morning, you steep rose hips in brandy and make your strongest oil in months. You call it Whisperblade. It smells like plum, smoke, and the exact moment you decide to stop apologizing, you don't sell it. You wear it everywhere, and the change is immediate. The baker bows deeper. The miller stops teasing. The priest chooses his words more carefully. You haven't scared them. You've reminded them. Power doesn't mean kindness, and you've chosen to be kind. Historians still argue whether perfume was ever more than vanity, whether its use among women like you was cosmetic, manipulative, revolutionary. But none of them have stood in a square filled with people who mistrust what they can name, and watched those people pause when your scent passes by. That's not decoration, that's defense. One night, a stranger appears, a woman cloaked in brown, face hidden. She brings no name, only a request. She needs a scent to forget the one she wore when she made a terrible choice. You don't ask what, you prepare something that smells like snowmelt. She breathes it in, then leaves. You don't expect to see her again, but you do. Weeks later, in the market, she wears color now. Her shoulders are straighter. Her voice doesn't tremble when she asks for garlic. She smells like beginning again. You say nothing. You've learned to let healing pass without claiming it. At night, the air grows colder. The season shifts. You bring your bottles inside. Your students ask what winter scents work best. Would you say smoke, clove, pine, and just a trace of sugar? They nod and scribble. You look out the window, wondering if she's still watching, still walking, still making sure you never forget the line between perfume and power. You won't, because you walk it now, every day, and the scent is unmistakable. The kind of silence that settles after something has shifted, not a storm, not an argument, but the pause before people start whispering again. You feel it in your chest before your feet even touch the floor. Downstairs, your apprentices are already awake. They move like they've been holding their breath since dawn. No salves, no sachets, no unlicensed tinctures without written approval from the appointed council of apothecaries. You nod once, not because you agree, but because you expected this. Of course, they waited until the first snow, when doors creak and fires sputter, and the villagers need you most. You dress slowly, layering fabric scented with juniper, white pepper, and just a breath of ash. It smells like memory and confrontation. You haven't worn this scent since the last time someone tried to legislate your disappearance. Outside, the town hums with nervous energy. Not panic, not yet. but something sharper than curiosity and softer than fear. People read the notice with their mouths pulled tight. Some shake their heads, others cross themselves. A few nod, the way you nod at weather you can't control. The edict is written in elegant, looping script, and one name you don't. You spot him near the square, tall, elegant, unweathered by wind or reality. He carries a leather satchel and wears gloves that never touch dirt. He doesn't shout, he suggests. His words are polished like glass, and his smile never touches his eyes. He speaks of safety, of structure, of progress. He tells anyone who'll listen that this new council is for the public good, that too much knowledge in the wrong hands is a danger to the community, that remedies must be supervised, measured, standardized. People nod, some believe him, some just want to, because belief is easier than bravery. You watch from the shadow of a fig cart. He hasn't seen you yet, but he will. You know his type. Not a hunter, not a zealot. Worse, he's a librarian with a scalpel. He wants to dissect what you've built, classify it, reduce it, then bury it in a drawer labeled folklore. And the people will let him if it makes them feel just a little bit safer. That night, you build a fire. Your apprentices gather, quiet, alert. You pour tea, lavender, and mint, comforting, familiar. No performance here. Then, gently, you speak. This isn't new. They listen. They've tried this before. They'll try again. It only works if we vanish. They ask, do we fight? You smile. No, we outlast. The next days are slow and precise. You begin to prepare not for war, but for preservation. You teach them how to rename everything. Ginger becomes digestive powder. Clove oil is winter balm. Everything sounds domestic, boring, innocuous. You create new symbols, circles instead of spirals, straight lines instead of curves. The council will find them dull and bureaucratic, exactly as intended. You reorganize your shelves. Nothing illegal, nothing toxic, but everything inconveniently effective. You even print a few fake labels, just in case. And then they come, the council. 3 men, 2 nervous, 1 composed. The composed one is him, of course, the scholar. He steps over your threshold, like someone entering a museum, curious, respectful, calculating. They don't accuse, they assess. They admire your order, comment on your cleanliness, ask for samples. They do not request permission. You offer tea, they decline. You smile anyway. The inspection is performative, but dangerous. They're looking not for poisons, but for reasons, any excuse to seize, ban, or shudder. You offer none. You let your silence be soft, your scent be steady. Before they leave, the scholar pauses near your shelf. He lifts a small amber bottle, uncorks it, sniffs once. Honeysuckle and smoke. He murmurs, unusual pairing. You watch him. It reminds people of things they loved and lost. He doesn't smile, but he takes the bottle, no charge, a gift, because you know how stories grow. If he uses it just once, he'll remember you as pleasant, and that memory could save you. That night, you craft a new blend. The scent is colder, quieter. It smells of iron, moss, and forgiveness. You call it endurance, not for sale. You wear it under your scarf, behind your ears, at the corners of your wrists. You let the scent speak when words would be dangerous, and as the days stretch forward, you move like wind between shutters. You teach in flour sacks and cookbooks now. You whisper recipes while helping peel potatoes. You pass sachets hidden in laundry bundles. Nothing is labeled, nothing is obvious, but the work continues, because it always has. You've scented this village with continuance. And even if they forget your face, they'll remember the smells, the ones that comforted them, the ones that softened fear, the ones that arrived just before things got better. They'll remember those, and the right ones always remember. Historians still argue whether perfume held real power, or whether it was merely a ritual to mask the fear of not knowing. Whether witches used scent to bend wills, or whether they just understood something others didn't, that memory is tied to smell, that trust begins at the nose, that safety is a scent you carry with you. You know the truth, but you won't say it aloud. You never do. Instead, you open your shutters before dawn and let endurance drift out into the cold. Just a hint. Enough to remind the wind that you're still here, that you're still working, that you're still watching, because they can ban your jars, seize your scrolls, rewrite your names, but they'll never find what's already in the wind. Winter thickens. The snow no longer melts by new-knit piles, then freezes, then sighs underfoot like old bones shifting beneath a blanket. The village folds inward, houses turning into nests. Bread is shared more than stories now. Candles are watched like clocks, and still your door stays busy, not with crowds, not with fanfare, but with quiet knocks. The woman with the red-nosed baby who won't sleep. The butcher with pain in his knees that he won't name. The seamstress who never believed in anything, but now swears by your peppermint oil. They don't say which, they say you. You might have something, you always know, you helped before, and you do help, still, but less. You're pulling back now, like a tide that's warned the shore enough times. Because you feel it, that slow unspooling that always comes just before they forget why they loved you and start to remember why they feared you. It always happens, not out of malice, but math. When something becomes too relied upon, it stops being wondrous and starts being threatening. They've named you in too many good stories, which means a bad one is coming. You taught your girls that. Never let them call you sacred, you once said, because next they'll call you cursed. And now it's happening. One day, a villager stops you on the path to the mill. He smiles, too wide. You should speak at the festival this year. Bless the bread. You blink. No, you say gently. I'm no priest. You're better than one, he replies. And just like that, your blood goes cold. That night, you say nothing. But your oldest apprentice notices you reorganizing the oils, pulling out the ones that smell of endings marjoram, black cardamom, blood cedar. You're leaving, she asks. Not yet, you say. She nods. She understands. They all do. You taught them that leaving is never just a door. Closing it is a scent trailing out behind you, changing the air. The next week, a stranger arrives in the village, not the kind that hides, the opposite. She's tall, hooded, speaks with authority, smells faintly of leather, ink, and lye. She visits homes and asks pointed questions. She holds scrolls stamped with council seals. She's not here for help. She's here to count. Your name is on her list. You find out from the baker's wife. She asked how many remedies you sell. I said you don't sell, you share. I think that was the wrong answer. It always is. You begin to move faster. Then, quietly, you leave satchels with coded blends in the homes of mothers and widows. You whisper exit plans to your apprentices. If they come for me, you scatter. Take your oils. Take your recipes. Burn the rest. They nod, but their eyes stay on you, like children watching the last candle flicker. One night, You take a walk. Past the fig trees. Past the well. Out to the edge of the woods, where the land goes hush, and she is there, your teacher, older, paler, still sharp as thistle. You waited too long, she says, without turning. I wanted to give them a little more, you reply. She snorts. They never take just a little. You stand in silence beside her. The trees listen. The wind holds its breath. Finally, she turns. You taught them well. You nod. She touches your scarf. The scent of endurance still lingers. Do they know how to vanish? They will, you say. She smiles just once, then walks away. You don't follow. The next morning you leave a final bottle in the bakery. No name, no label, just a scent like safety and bread crusts. And the moment before dawn, then you pack only what you need. A notebook, 3 vials, a string of dried sage, a broken charm that never worked but always felt important. You leave through the back. No ceremony, just quiet steps and a deep breath that smells like home and departure at once. You don't look back. You don't need to, because the scent of you is still everywhere, in the mill, in the inn, in the folds of scarves, and between book pages. They'll remember, maybe not your name, but your presence, your usefulness, your kindness. And the moment they smell honeysuckle and smoke, again they'll pause. They won't know why, but they'll hesitate, and sometimes that's enough. Historians still argue whether the witches ever truly disappeared, or simply learned to leave lighter footprints. Whether perfume was a weapon, a veil, or a promise. Whether the power was ever in the scent, or always in the hands that carried it. You don't need to argue. You just keep walking toward the next village, the next apprentice, the next whisper. You are not gone. You are diffused. The fire has burned down now, its light softened to a low amber glow. The room is still, the story spent. All that lingers now is a warmth in your chest and maybe a scent in the air, faint as memory. Your breathing has slowed. The world outside your blanket doesn't matter anymore. Not the snow, not the rules, not the stranger with the scrolls. All of that can wait. Right now, you are safe. Right now, your mind drifts like smoke, curling upward, fading gently into quiet. There's nothing left to do, nothing to fear. Only this moment, and the hum of sleep on its way. You are still. You are held. You are home. End of script. Sweet dreams.